What's up, you guys? Mr. Sark here. I've made the long trek from the Machinima offices over here to visit Treyarch. I'm joined by Mark Lamia, the studio head here, and you guys are breaking some pretty effing big news here. You're announcing Black Ops 2 officially. Every summer, though, Call of Duty fever starts to set in. Let's start off, obviously, you guys usually open up the floodgates with talk about the campaign, the setting, and you have some really interesting twists going on with Black Ops 2. Let's start off real quick with the setting and some of the measures you guys have gone to as far as making that setting authentic.
Yeah, so I think it'll be pretty surprising to everybody that we're taking Call of Duty to the future, and it's a little more than a decade out. It's about 13 years out. So, at Treyarch, what we do is we create, we look at history, and then we set you in that setting, those settings that you've read about, that you're maybe familiar with, and then we kind of weave our fiction right through that, right? Well, that's really important when we're creating our future setting, which is a little more than 10, 13 years out, and we turn to experts to help us with some of that stuff. And so we worked with somebody by the name of Peter Singer, who's a senior fellow at the Brookings Institute, who advises world leaders on, at the Brookings Institute, what they do is they advise these world leaders on, like, what should they be concerned about in the next 10 to 13 years. So as we're creating our future history conflict, we're going through, we're talking to these people, and they're telling us about, Peter's telling us about the advancements in technologies that we can expect. And I think, you have to think back 13 years and what was technology like for us and on the battlefield. When you think out 13 years, there's going to be some pretty dramatic advances in the use of robotics, AI, and drones on the battlefield. This isn't science fiction anymore. This is totally reality. And if you look at the headlines, as fast as they may stream off the front page there, you already start to see the future being written and the ramifications of it, the effects of what cyber warfare is having, just on the whole geopolitical landscape. We've created an entirely new fiction about a second Cold War. This game is going to span two time periods, the first Cold War in the 80s, as well as the second Cold War. And that's really important for us because we're going to be telling a story where you're going to be playing the characters from the first Black Ops, and through their eyes, you're going to see how our villain is created during that first Cold War during the 80s, and you'll learn about his motivations and then what he's truly capable of in the year 2025 when technology is advanced.
One of my favorite parts of your presentation was, and it must feel so good for you guys, you started asking us, who's heard of rare earth materials and all this stuff, and I was like, I don't know what Mark's talking about right now. and then you started dropping news clips and Obama speech videos and all this stuff.
From a month ago.
Yeah, and so, it's kind of cool. The experts and the references you guys have pulled and are referring to in this game are sort of just now becoming a really noticeable thing, which is kind of cool.
Yeah, they're making the headlines right now. I still think a lot of people aren't aware of some of this stuff. Certainly I'm sure some of the viewers that you have heard of some of the cyber warfare stuff that's going on out there. It's real. There's real, actual Black Ops cyber warfare going on right now in the world, and it's making some of the headlines. We use rare earth materials as sort of in our fiction as the new oil in the next decade. These are the things that you find in all of our consumer electronics devices, your smartphones, your tablets, your plasmas. Ironically enough, we call it the new oil. It actually is in the materials that are going to replace our dependency on oil. It's in hybrid car batteries, it's in wind turbines and solar technologies. All these technologies are all using these rare earth. Now, I think the shocking thing is that that people might not understand is that 95% of the world's rare earth materials are coming from China, which has quite a large population of its own to serve with all of those things, the consumer electronics devices and everything else. And it makes for a really interesting setup for a Cold War fiction going in the future.
Game mechanics and gameplay. Let's stay in campaign for now.
Okay.
Because you guys have tweaked campaign, as you guys know it, pretty heavily. I mean, some of the things we can hit on right now, you've got branching storylines, choices in game that affect the outcome of the campaign.
The outcome of the
campaign. And the big one for me is the Strike Force stuff. I'm super excited.
It's kind of choice at kind of every level, right? So, campaign structure, Call of Duty, typically been fairly linear, right? In terms of you play and then you go to the next mission. When you get to a Strike Force level, JSOC Command's going to lay out the situation in the world, the Cold War at the time. You got your hotspots. You'll be able to choose the mission that you want to go on with your Black Ops. You get dropped into that hotspot and you can play it. You either get mission success or failure. And normally in Call of Duty, if you fail, it's like you play again, right? But actually in this mission, if you fail, that's just part of the story, and it goes off on a different branch. And by the way, these other missions that you didn't choose, the fiction carries forward with that until, you know, except if you want to go back and play, which is cool by us, because we would love nothing more than for you guys to want to go back and get more enjoyment out of the campaign. But it really is choice at every level. It is sandbox gameplay. You know, I think we strive real hard to deliver that cinematic and intense experience. It's very, you know, there's a lot of scripting that goes on. It's very crafted so that we can, you know, what's Call of Duty going to do to, you know, to kind of blow you away this time. And we have those experiences, but with Strike Force, it's all gameplay. It's pure gameplay. Right, and it's at the very basic level. You can play it like you play every other Call of Duty level. You get dropped in the ground. You have your squad. It happens to have. It's in the future. Takes place in 2025. So you have all the technology and tools of the battlefield at the time are in the mission with you, and you can just play through it and take objectives. But that would only be scratching the surface, because you actually have the opportunity to move between different members of your squad. You can take over any of the equipment on the battlefield. Whether it's the land ones or the air ones, you can fly and drive, and they have awesome weaponry. You can play it in Overwatch mode, which is a tactical view. You can set up your scenario in tactical view, then go back down and play it on the ground, and then you can move to be one of the, you know, if you want to be a quad rotor who has, you know, you have that heavy caliber on that. You have, you know, we have this thing that we call the Claw, which is the Cognitive Land Assault Weapon, and this thing is insane. This is basically a tank. It's a quadruped with really heavy machinery. And if you think about what's out there in the world in terms of robotics, it's not long before those things are no longer just mules and they've strapped some heavy machinery on it, right? You could play that entire mission from Overwatch mode if you really wanted to, or you can play it on the ground. You could do whatever you want, and it's not going to play the same way twice.
You could, in theory, play this like totally from an elevated perspective, as if it was an RTS game, and control your team and all
totally
the units.
Overwatch mode.
It's up to you. At any point, he was zooming down into, I want to be that soldier right now, you know, and hack that node or whatever, or I'm going to hop into that unmanned drone. So I don't know. I think that's huge. It adds a lot of variety to the campaign.
Man, there's a ton of new gameplay mechanics going in, right? Between that, it's like you can fly, you can drive, you play, you know, traditional COD style, tactical overview. That's one level. You can do all that stuff in, or you can just play it through traditionally. And the thing about it is when you play one of these levels, it actually affects the storyline, because it affects what's going on in the Cold War and on the geopolitical level, and it branches off, and that's really the case with actually the you know, there'll be these key decision points in the game, and they're going to come at you COD style, not like, you know, it's not going to come up and it's going to be like, hey, there's a choice A or B, which one do you want? It's going to be COD style. It's going to be intense. You're going to know there's a fork in the road, and you know, it's happening, and you have to make a really hard decision, and some of these are going to be like really intense decisions, and the story will change as a result of that. It's unlikely that you and I will have the same ending in this game, and we'll be able to, you know, I think it'll encourage people to want to go back and maybe make some different choices, and we're excited about that, because, you know, we're putting all kinds of new gameplay mechanics, you know, sandbox gameplays we talked about, and the Strike Force stuff, and that excites us that people might spend a little more time enjoying the campaign as well.
A little example of that during the demo, where you were faced with the choice of as simple as, do you want to rappel down and get into the shit, or do you want to snipe?
Yeah, no, that's just a gameplay
snipe,
choice.
I think. Yeah.
So we got to a place. You were on the 10 freeway, and all hell was breaking loose, and you could either provide cover with your sniper rifle, which, by the way, has an awesome optic that'll be coming out, I'm sure, in the next decade, where you'll have the ability to penetrate and see through materials. It has some technologies in there with an electronic charge that'll penetrate different materials, and you were able to provide cover for the troops on the ground. Now, if you wanted to play that differently, you would have just rappelled down and been on the ground and provided support on the ground level. It's very, that's a very subtle, simple choice event that we have going in that level. You could really see, though, with all the other gameplay modes, just how much variety. And even in that level that we showed you, it was like, a lot of weapons. There was driving, there was flying, there was all kinds of stuff. And it wasn't like you were in the cockpit just shooting at something. He was flying it and firing at it, and he was doing it. It was really intense. As a matter of fact, I thought he was going to just.
Yeah,
I thought he was going to eat it a couple of times. It was pretty intense.
Yeah, so we saw. Yeah, absolutely. There's the driving, flying. There's been the hints of even some equestrian action
in the 80s in Afghanistan. That was a primary mode of transportation in combat. These special ops horse riders, and so they were very skilled at firing their weaponry and using those horses. And so, and what that is that's new gameplay. I mean, let's just boil all these things down, right? It's a COD game, and there's a ton of run and gun, but we've tried to break it up with all kinds of new game mechanics to keep it interesting and keep it fun, and we're really pushing the boundaries on not only gameplay in the campaign, but storytelling with the branching storylines, the fiction, and really just pretty much on every front, just trying to really push the boundaries. And I don't think it's what anyone's expecting for a Call of Duty game.